Welcome. I'm going to go over the argumentative essay. I'm probably going to go through it quickly, but I'm going to send you these documents. Right, so this is a 5-paragraph essay. Your first paragraph is your introduction. You only want it to be 4 to 5 sentences. The first thing you have to do is hook. You have to have some kind of hook to grab your audience's attention, right? If you don't grab that reader's attention, then they're mostly likely not going to finish reading. And there are different hooks. You can do a compelling fact, statistic, interesting question, famous quote, a strong statement. Just start off why your topic is important. You can do a joke, but use that sparingly because you don't want to set the wrong tone. You don't want people to think that your argument is a joke. So I'd be cautious with that one. You could do a descriptive hook, use your senses to describe. Start with a misconception, right? Also, metaphor similes. You can start that way. So your first thing will be a hook to grab your reader's attention. Then you're going to follow it with 2 to 3 sentences about the history of your topic. Keep it simple, but give enough information that the reader can understand your essay. But don't go into detail about your argument. That's saved for your paper later on. This is just simple background history information, like common knowledge things. Then the last sentence is your thesis. Your thesis is your opinion, but it's stated as a fact. We never say, I think, I feel, I believe, in my opinion, right? So your opinion stated as a fact. And then 2 reasons why people should believe your opinion. The 2 reasons are your evidence. Right? So if you did the students should wear uniforms, right? So my thesis would be schools should require all students to wear school uniforms. That's what I think, but I stated it as a fact, right? I didn't say I think schools should require all students to wear uniforms. Cut the I think off and state it as a fact. Schools should require all students to wear school uniforms. Then what are my 2 reasons? Why do I believe this? Where's my proof? Right? My first reason, because it promotes equality. And the second reason, it enhances safety and discipline. There are my 2 reasons. That's what I'm going to prove. My research has to be about school uniforms promoting equality and enhancing safety and discipline. Never, ever say the goal of this essay. In this essay, I will explain. I'm going to write about this essay explores. This essay is going to tell you, right? Don't do that. You're insulting your audience. Say what you need to say, right? That's your first paragraph. Your second paragraph, right? This one's 5 to 7 sentences. If you want to make it longer than that, you can, but I wouldn't go over 15 sentences in a paragraph. This is to talk about the first reason you put in your thesis statement. Right? So this is getting into your research here. Use a transition so your reader can easily follow your writing. Imagine if you were going to get in a car and I told you drive to California, but you have no roadmap, you have no GPS, you have no phone, you just figure it out and go. Most of us are going to say, no, right? We'll get lost. That's what happens if you do not use transition. Your readers get lost. Your transitions are your GPS, your map. They guide your reader through your essay. They let them know when you're switching topics, when you're going to the other claim, right? They're guiding them through that essay. Right? And I gave you some transitions you can use here. And you guys are lucky. You can Google transitions for my first paragraph in an argumentative essay, and they'll give you transitions. This is one of the things you can use an AI. You can say, what are some transitions I can use in an argumentative essay for my first point? Right? That's what an AI. An AI is not to write your paper for you, but you can use it to assist you, such as finding transitions. The third paragraph is going to be like the second paragraph, but it's going to talk about your second topic. Again, you must use a transition, and I give you some there to use. Your fourth paragraph, this is probably going to be your shortest paragraph, and you definitely don't want to make it really long. You want to keep it short and to the point. Right? We're talking 3 to 4 sentences for this one. This is where you're going to address the opposite side. It's called a counterclaim. When we address a counterclaim, it's a rebuttal. You're going to consider the opposing side. You want their strongest point. And what you're going to do with that strongest point is you're going to take it and prove that it's wrong. That's the whole point of your rebuttal. Proving the opposition's strongest point is wrong. So if we talked about the school uniforms, what would be the biggest point that they're going to make for the opposition? It is probably most likely going to be that people can't express their individuality, right? So that's what we would address. You're going to show it, the opposing view, then you're going to show how it's wrong and why your argument is correct. There are transitions to use for your rebuttal for the opposing side. The fifth paragraph is your conclusion. It should be about the same length as your introduction. And you want to restate your thesis, but you do not want to restate it word for word. You want to have the meaning the same, different way of stating it. Right? You're going to summarize your 2 points. Do not just repeat the same exact words. Right? Use synonyms. Find a new way to say it. Then the last sentence, this is your last chance to get the reader to agree with you. So spend some time and think carefully about how you want to end your essay. Do not, under any circumstances, use any of these. In conclusion, to conclude, in summary, to summarize, to wrap up. Right? The goal of a conclusion is to restate your thesis and your proof and give your last chance to convince your reader. In writing, your reader can see they're on the last paragraph. Therefore, if you put any of those in conclusion, to conclude, in summary, any like that, you're just insulting your reader's intelligence. Right? Those phrases are meant to be used for speeches. When you give a speech, your audience can't see your notes. So those phrases are verbal clues for the audience to let them know that the speaker's wrapping it up. They're going to be ending soon. Right? Think of, sitting in church and the preacher's preaching and you're wondering, hey, how long is he going to preach? And you're listening for those, I'm about done, or to wrap up, or in conclusion, right? Those are for those type speeches, right? Where the audience can't see the written work, the notes. So here are some common do's and don'ts. These are what I'm finding in papers. Never use contractions. Remember, when we're writing, it is professional academic, right? If you're writing short stories, novels, by all means, you can use contractions. But in professional academic writing, we do not use contractions. Write them out. If the number is below 100, write it out. 100 and above, you could put it as numbers. Do not use personal pronouns, I, me, you, we, us, etc. Instead, try somebody, someone, anyone. Make sure your nouns and verbs agree in number. If the noun is plural, verb has to be plural. If the noun's singular, the verb has to be singular. Watch your is and was. Make sure the pronoun matches the antecedents in number and gender. And I'll give you another tip. Pronouns. Can you replace it to make it a more clear picture, right? If you can put the name of that pronoun in there, use the name. Formal vocabulary. Choose words that are appropriate for formal context and avoid slang, right? No text lingo, no slang, formal grammar, right? So we wouldn't be saying a ye bob and yeet, right? Those are slang. Dead words, dead phrases. These are words and phrases that are just overused. They're not really specific to tell us. They don't add much meaning or depth. And we can use a synonym and you'll receive this dead word list. But it's things like, he walked down the road. We've used walk. What else can we say to paint a better picture for the reader? He galloped down the road. He skipped down the road. He moseyed down the road. Right? There are lots of other words that you can use. Do not use filler words. These words just take up space and they add no meaning. And that sentence really is a filler word. They really add, and they do, that should be not really add meaning. They just take up the space. It makes your writing less concise and impactful, and you'll see the list of filler words. Do not start a sentence with the fanboys conjunction, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. Now, there's a great debate with this. If you are doing informal writing, and you're writing your novel, short story, blog, by all means, you can use fanboys to start your sentence. However, in academic professional writing, we do not use fanboys to start a sentence. In professional academic writing, fanboys are conjunctions used to join sentences. Be careful about repeating the same word several times. Use synonyms. And do not repeat the same information. If you've given it once, that's it. You don't need to repeat it again. I've read some that it's in the introduction, it's in the first paragraph, it's in the second paragraph, it's in the third paragraph, and it's in the conclusion. We don't want that. State it once. Then I give you some tips for revising. There are revising and editing. There is a huge difference. right? Revising, you're making changes. Editing, you're fixing or improving. So when you revise, you're making improvements to the meaning of the words in the writing. You're focused on word choices, clarity, author's intent. When you are editing, right, you're helping to improve the authority and reduce distractions. So revising, think of it as if you bought this house, right? And you go in. Revising would be tearing out a wall, putting a wall someplace else, moving the sink, changing the bathroom, right? Editing would be things like painting the walls, getting new rugs, right? It's making it look nice and flow nice, the distractions. But revising is the digging in, the moving things around. And then I gave you arms and cups, right? Arms is used for revising. You're going to add sentences and words. You're going to remove unneeded words or word placement. You're going to substitute words or sentences. Think about if you're building, you need your arms to add, move, change, right? So you'd have to have your arm muscles, and that's revising because we're tearing out those walls, we're removing the bathtub, right? Cups is for editing. Cups, capitals, be sure your sentence starts with a capital letter. Proper nouns start with a capital letter. Right? Places, months, titles, and the word I, which you shouldn't use in this because you can't use personal pronouns. Usage, match your nouns and verbs correctly. Make sure your pronouns and antecedents match. Punctuations, commas, semicolons, ending marks, quotation marks. Watch those commas. You cannot just put two sentences together with a comma. That's called a comma splice, and it makes a run-on sentence. You have to have one of those fanboy conjunctions in there. Spelling, check your words, make sure they're spelled correctly. Sometimes you may type too fast and it will change it, and it changes it to another word. Check that. Editing is all about mechanical pieces that make up the message. It's not taking out a whole sentence or adding in a new idea, right? It's making singular changes throughout the writing to improve the mechanics, right? It's making it look nice. With this, you had to have two sources. I'm sorry, one source. You had to have one source. You could have two. So when we use sources, we have to tell where this information comes from, right? So it's called a reference page. What we use to cite is Modern Language Association, MLA. That's what we use in English class. The other one is APA, and that's used in science classes. So for English, MLA, Modern Language Association. There's a set of rules. I don't know who invented it, who came up with it. I imagine a bunch of old men sitting around a table coming up with all these rules that how we have to write this and format it. I don't know. But somewhere they decided this is what we have to do. We only use Times New Roman, size 12. That's it. No other font. Everything from the title to the heading through the works cited page, everything in our papers, Times New Roman, font 12, block ink. Double space. And remember, you have to remove the extra space between like lines. 1-inch margins. Page numbers. And your last name has to be in front of the page number in the upper right-hand corner. Use title case capitalizations for headings and italics for emphasis. use the Oxford comma. This is the comma before the fanboys. Spell out numbers below 100, which we went over. Spell out fractions. You have to have in-text citation that matches the citation page, and you have to have a citation page. For MLA, the citations page is called Works Cited. What the Works Cited does is it gives the reader all the information the reader would need to find that on their own. They're going to go look at it, see the author, the name of the website, the name of the article, the publisher, the date it was published, and they can go find it on their own and read it for themselves. Right? In-text citation is a little different. In-text citation is throughout your paper, and it has to match your works cited. The in-text citation just tells your reader which source on your works cited page that information goes with. And I'll go over that in a minute, how to do that. All right, the works cited is where you put any source that you use in your paper. If you did not use the source in your paper, it does not go in the works cited page. So when you start gathering sources, you may create a works cited page with all these sources on it. Then when you go to write, you're like, I didn't use this one. Then delete it off there. If it's on that works cited page and it's not used in your paper, it can actually be considered a type of plagiarism. And then I go through on how this. The first thing you need is the author's last name. You'll put the last name, comma, first name. Hicks, comma, Sam, period. Do not forget the period after the first name. You're going to learn that a lot of this, when we're doing the citation, is, really picky with punctuation. But if you forget a period, then it's wrong. Next, you need the title of the book, the article, the journal. If it's an article or web page, put it in quotation marks. So there's the name, Hicks, comma, Sam, period. Quotation, the pros and cons of high school students wearing school uniforms, period, quotation. Notice there's a space after the period at the end of the first name, right? So Sam, period, space. The name of the article is then in quotations. All important words in the title are capitalized. See pros, cons, high school students wearing school uniforms. The minor words, and, of, are not capitalized. There's a closing quotation mark, and the period is on the inside. The next thing you need to add the title of the website, project, or book and put it in italics. So we have the name, we have the name of the article. Now we need the web page, the book, the school connections, period, and you italicize it. Next, if you have a publisher, you include the publisher, right? You put period, space, then here would go the publisher's name, period. Then you're going to put the date the article was published. You will list it as day, month, year, then a period. I'll put 4 January 2024, period. Now, sometimes these are published, they may not have all the date. They may have January 2024. That's all you would put then. They may just have a year, 2024. That's all you would put. Whatever information is given to you, that's what you put. Sometimes if it's a journal, it may say winter 2024. That's what you would put. You abbreviate the month. If you only have a month in a year, it's what you use. Like I said, it could say spring 2024. Whatever the date it was published is, that's what you use. Then the next thing you're going to do is add the date you access the information. This is for online. If you went to the website, what is the last date that you visited the website? That means that website was up and running on that day. Again, you would put day, month, year. And that one should always have day, month, year. You put the word accessed in front of it, the day, the month, the year, period. The last thing you add is the URL. And you simply would just copy and paste it. And I just put, you would put the URL here. You would copy and paste it. So the works cited, again, is font Times New Roman size 12. It's double space, but we'll remove the extra space. The first line of each source is not indented. All other lines are indented. Then I give you an example. You see, this first line is not indented. But you notice all these lines down here are. This is called a hanging indentation. Let's put this up here. Hanging indentation, because it's opposite, right? Typically, we have the first line we indent and all other lines aren't. When we're doing the works cited, it's the opposite. The first line is not indented, all other lines are. That way, you can see all these lines go with this one. Right. The next thing is to make sure you use in-text citations, and it has to match what's on the works cited page. The in-text citation tells the reader which source on the works cited page that information came from. If you have an author's last name, you put the last name. Example, in my paper, if I said, wearing uniforms makes students take more pride in his or her work. Right here, I have a last name, so that's all I need to put. Parenthesis, last name, parenthesis, period. This is one of those nitpicky things. You cannot put a period here after work. What this period at the end does outside of this is it says all of that goes together. Right? So if you put a period there, then it separates it, and we don't want that. We want to show that this information came from this source. If the source does not have an author, then you use the title of the book, you would underline it or italics, or the title of the article in quotation marks. Right? Boys are more likely not to complain when having to wear school uniforms. Here, I do not have an author's last name, so I would just put their first name. I'm sorry, I would just put the name of the article right here in quotations. So I'd put parentheses, quotations, the name of the article. Notice there's a period with the article, that's fine. Quotations, closing parentheses, then the period on the outside. Now you can use Citation Machine website to help you create your works cited. They have all kinds of these. Citation Machine is my favorite one. Just make sure you're using MLA format. All right, so that's all the directions. So now let's write a paper. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start a new paper. So I'm going to open a blank document. The first thing I'm going to do is format. Before I do anything, I want to change it to Times New Roman, size 12. My spacing, I want double. Now this is our heading. I need to go back and put this here. All right, so our heading would be our student name, class, teacher name, due date. So you would put your first and last name, make sure both are capitalized, enter. English 9 dash, and this will be your class period, right? It's either going to be 4, 5, or 6. So whatever class period. Enter Mrs. Hicks. Enter the due date. And I really do not remember when this was due. You don't put the current date, you put the date it was due. And it was due April 9th. So you would put 9 April 2024. Then this would be our title line. Now I want to hit enter. The title is the only thing that's centered. So we want to center that and make sure your cursor comes back here to the left. Now, this may have extra space. So you're going to hold down Control A to highlight everything. Come up to your line spacing, do line spacing options. And here it says, don't add space between paragraphs of the same style. Click that. And watch, this will get smaller over here. That's what we want. So if I put remove extra space, that's what it is. Now we need to put page numbers. So we go to insert, page number, top of page, and we want it on the right side. So that's this one. Then I'm going to put my cursor in front of the page number, and I'm going to type my last name, capitalize the first letter, and hit the space one time. And you see this dotted line. Anywhere below that, double click. Now, if you did it correctly, when we go to the second page, it will have your last name and second page. If you ended up erasing the number when you went to do it, and you think that you could just do your last name and put the number 1 in there, this is what will happen when you go to the next page. Instead of saying the last name 2, it's going to say the last name 1. So if you do that, you want to delete it, go back up to insert, page number, top of page, flush right, and try again. I need to make it match, so bugs me if it doesn't match. Right, so there's the format of our paper. Now I'm going to say I already got my sources, so I want to start with that before I even start writing my paper. So I'm going to make the works cited page. The works cited page has to be on a page by itself. Nothing else can be on that page. So I'll go to the last page and type works cited. Works cited gets centered. Nothing else does. So make sure your cursor comes back here to the left. If for some reason your cursor would be right here and you couldn't get it back over on this line, right? You put it in the middle and just come up here and tell it to align left. It'll move it back over. There's the citation machine. Make sure it's MLA. We're going to do a website. And let's find a website. Now, when we talk about the websites, we also have to consider the source. The most credible sources are .org, .edu, .gov. Or, yeah, .org, .edu, .gov. Credible sources are those that have been verified, right? Wikipedia or wiki anything is not a credible source. So this one is a .edu. So it looks pretty good. So I'm going to use it. What I would do, I would copy the URL and I would come back to this citation machine, paste it. Again, make sure it says MLA, website, tell it to search. Here it found it, so I want it to cite. So I click on cite. It tells me everything that it found, and here's what it did not find. So we click on continue. Make sure everything pulls over correctly. It doesn't always. So we have no author. So let's look at this. Is there an author here? No, doesn't look like it. So we would leave that blank, and you see it put that in there. So we just take it out. Anytime you don't have the information, you just skip it. Here it gave us the website title, the sponsor, the URL. We have to change this to yes. It tells me it was published on April 23rd, 2013. Then it gives the day I accessed it, today. And then tell it to complete citation. There is your citation. So you can hover over it and tell it to copy. You can do the 3 dots and tell it to copy. Then we go on our works cited and we paste it. Now the thing is, this is not double space, so we would have to highlight it and double space. We also want to make sure that we didn't add a space between like paragraphs, so we highlight it, click that. Right, there's our works cited page. Right, and I'm going to try to find one more here. And here is a .org. So I'm going to use it. I'm going to copy the URL, go back to my citation machine, create citation, website, MLA, paste it, tell it to search. When it finds it, tell it to cite. So it found a lot of information, so we tell it to continue, and we check the information. Article. With an article, we should put it in quotation marks. Authors, it pulled it over. where we got it, the website title, the URL, we have to click yes and check the date. Then we tell it complete citation, and we're going to have to view an ad. You can do one or two and then it makes you view ads unless you buy the program. I just view the ads. So here is ours. We tell it, we can hover over it, tell it to copy. You can come here, tell it to copy. Then we go back to our works cited and we paste it. Let's get it in the proper format. So we want it to double space, but we don't want any extra lines. So we'll check this just to make sure. Now with the works cited page, you see the hanging indentation here. So it's easy to see all that goes with that one. All this goes with that one. It has to be in alphabetical order from whatever it starts with. All right, so we have S and O. So this has to come before. So I'm just going to copy it, come up here and paste it. See, I ended up with an extra space, so I'm going to hit the back to get rid of that. There's our works cited page. Now I've got my works cited page. So I am ready to begin my paper. Remember, the first thing we said was the introduction, that we needed something to grab the reader's attention. Right. I want to appeal to people with this one because everybody in their life at some point has complained about homework. That's just how it is. Right? So I'm going to start with an old saying. You know, everybody has heard the debate over if students should be required to do homework after spending a majority of the day in school. Everyone has an opinion on this topic. Right, so I might as well get it out there. So that's how I'm going to start it. And then they're going to start thinking, oh yeah, why should they have homework? Or, you know, yeah, they should have homework. Right? Then it tells you after the hook, give 2 to 3 sentences about the history of your topic. Keep it simple. Right? So we started with the history of homework. So maybe I want to look up when was the first homework assignment. I don't know. Let's try Googling it. We're going to say assigned. Right? So here is the guy who is credited with inventing homework. Here's an education site. So I might want to read and see what information I can use. There's about homework. And you see, it says he created it to punish his lazy students and ensure that they fully learned their lessons. The modern homework, so I may want to do this, right? I may want to mention him. So that's part of the history. Then here we have something about the father of modern homework. So we see if there's information you'd want to use it. And here we get homework in America. And we could put that. Right, so we have the first person to give it, right? And who gave it in America, started it here. And there's more if you wanted to add more. But remember, we don't want to overwhelm our reader in the introduction. Keep it short and simple. Right? Just give a little bit of facts about it. And I might want a little more. Let's see what he says. said mandatory. Let's see, then we want to move into our thesis. Remember, our thesis is our opinion stated as a fact with the 2 reasons. So let's see. I'll save that for the conclusion. Shh. So, in schools all around the world, mandatory homework is still given to students to complete at home. Right? So my opinion, I think homework should be given several times a week. So I'm going to state it as a fact. Homework should be given several times a week. Now I need my reasons. Why do I think this? Right? There's that Oxford comma, and. So, because it helps students to master the concepts being taught. And I'm going to say it helps teach students time management skills. Okay, there's my first paragraph. So then let's look at this. Our second paragraph, we're going to talk about our first reason. What was our first reason? Help students master concepts being taught. Right? And here's some transitions I can use. So, right, there's my first reason. Now I'm going to use the rest of this paragraph to explain that reason and why that is true. This is where I need my research. And I'm going to quickly research something for us and see what it comes up. So I would just have to go through and find the information that I need. Let's see, the first point to address is that homework helps students master the concepts being taught in school. I'm going to go with my own information. See, I wanted to put when you, but I can't use the word you. So I'm going to put factor in the time it takes to transition from each class, get out supplies, and get the class back on track. There is now about 37 minutes. So we need more time to practice the concepts. All right. So you could go and add some more, whatever. I'm just trying to give you an idea of this, how we would write it. And these, go ahead and correct them because I need hyphens. So, but that paragraph would be all about that it helps students master that concept. Then I would go to my next paragraph. And let's look back at our sheet. And this one is, right, the third paragraph. It deals with our second point. Right, and here are some transitions we can use. So our second point is it helps to teach students time management skills. Right, so I can add one of these transitions. Right, now I'm going to find my research that says that. Right, and I'm not going to take time to look one up because you guys get the point of how to write it from our research. So I could say many students struggle with time management skills and often skip assignments or turn assignments in late. Students need to learn how to manage their time and prioritize tasks. Right, and I could go find the source and quote some facts here. Now, I have these two paragraphs. Okay. According to, let me see my works cited. Now you notice here I put the name. If I put the name in it, according to, and the last name, I do not have to cite it at the end. If I didn't, and I just put this, then I'm going to have to come here and cite it. Remember, no period, space, bracket. The best way to make sure is copy this because you want it to match exactly. Paste, closing bracket, period. Now there are two ways to do in-text citation. Okay, because every time you switch sources, you have to cite in-text citation. This right here is called in-text citation, citing your sources. Right? You can cite at the end of a paragraph. That would mean all of this came from this source. That's fine. Or every time you switch sources. So say I got this from interview from Hicks, right? And then I got this from interview from Staley, right? So wherever I put my information, I can do a whole paragraph like this. And if all this comes from one source, then I can cite at the end, or I can do it like this paragraph, and this part comes from this source, this part comes from that source. Now, remember I said, if we use it here, it has to be on our works cited. Well, these two are not on our works cited. So let's fix that. When you do an interview, you put their last name, comma, first name, period, space, personal interview, capitalize the P and the I. Then you put the date that you did it. So we're going to say 10 May 2024. And that's all you have to do. Okay. If I'm going to use the other one, I need to put it up here. Because it has to be in alphabetical order. Now we will fix this at the end because this has to be on a page by itself. But there are our sources. Now when we look up here at our paper, we say, you know, where do we use these sources? If I did not use them in this paper, then they cannot go on this. So let's say I forgot, and this is from, we're going to say this one. So I'm just going to grab it. Put a closing bracket, opening bracket, paste it, closing bracket, period. Okay. Now I'll say, okay, everything's cited. I got it. It's doing well. We have our introduction, our first paragraph, second paragraph. Now we're ready for introduction, first, second, third. So we're ready for our fourth paragraph. And the fourth paragraph, remember I said, would probably be the shortest. This is the rebuttal, right? So what we have to think, what's the biggest argument against this? What's the biggest argument for saying no homework at all? Then you need to put your point. Right? You give theirs view. Their view is people are, young people are involved in extracurricular activities. They're not going to do extracurricular activities because they have so much homework to do. Right? So you address that point. While it is true that more young people are involved in extracurricular activities, then what's your point? Students still need to learn to have better time management skills and Again, I said that will probably be the shortest one. That's all I need. The fifth one is the conclusion. Remember, we're never going to put in conclusion, to conclude, in summary, to summarize, to wrap up. Our conclusion is going to be about the same length as our introduction. Here's our introduction. This is what I like to do. I like to copy it and move it down here so I can look at it. So I started it. Everyone has heard the debate over if students should be required to do homework after spending the majority of the day in school. Right? So I want to restate my thesis. Here's my thesis. Right? I don't want to say it word for word. Now, what we don't want to do in the conclusion, we don't want to add new information. So I couldn't put right? Now, why do I not want to put this? It's a good point, right? Because it's new information. If I didn't talk about it in my essay, it cannot go in the conclusion. So I may want to move that to my essay. If I leave it in here like this, then this is something when I'm revising, I would have to move around. Right, then I'm going to get rid of that. That's my conclusion. Now what I need to make sure is this is on the very top line. So if I go too far, hit enter. And that would be our essay. So I hope this helps you to write your paper. If you have any questions, please email me.